Shubhika, Shubhika Sharma, she runs a luxury couture label, which is sustainable and vegan. She launched her own label, Papa Don't Preach, in 2010. I think we've all heard of it. She's the owner of India's 2020 Vegan Fashion Award. She's got quite a few accolades, and she's known for her playful play on Indian silhouettes, which are now globally renowned. Now, there's a certain assumption of fashion, when we think of fashion. And what does that mean? And I think the two, we had a discussion prior to this as well, and we agreed that the two things that we initially think about are Bollywood and second weddings. Those are the way people consume what Indian fashion means. And of course, that's the first step and that's the first lens into it. But we want to disrupt those assumptions and we want to go beyond and highlight the complexity and the nuance of what fashion entails. Fashion is not Bollywood. Bollywood is not fashion. They're separate industries that have symbiotic relationships. They interact with each other, but they're so diverse, and thousands, if not millions of people in India are employed in these fields. So this panel is a first attempt at disrupting those assumptions. We've got diverse perspectives, so much to get into, and very limited time. So I'm going to get to the speakers and allow them, through their lens, to share what fashion means to them and shed light on how there's no singular definition for fashion in India. So Shubhika, I'm going to start with you. So it seems that there's like a dialectical relationship between Indian fashion and Western fashion, quote unquote. And Indian fashion is often influenced by Western fashion. We see the rise of the fusion trend, for example. And then there's also Western fashion, where we see like Indian culture and Indian fashion has made its way. We've got South Asian Fashion Week in New York, for example. And I think Papa Don't Preach is a very important example of that, because your designs are worn by people in India, by brides, by celebrities, by girls like me, of course, but they're also worn by American celebrities like Paris Hilton. Yep, she dressed Paris Hilton. They're now in an American movie with Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler, Murder Mystery 2. So we see fashion, especially in your brand, it's acting as a universal language that has the potential for cultural exchange. And, I'm an international relations major, as I mentioned, as are many of our attendees at this conference. And with this background, I can't help but see this linkage of fashion with diplomacy. And do you think that fashion can act as an agent of soft diplomacy, of cultural diplomacy for India?
Thanks, Prabhu. I really enjoy that question. I hope I can answer it in a short form. So for me, fashion, I'm actually going to start with a story. When I was 10, my dad came back from his first trip to Europe. He was the first person I knew who had actually traveled outside of India. And he came back and he bought me this frock. And I used to love frocks. I really wanted them frilly and big. And he gave it to me and I tried it on. But then I saw the label and it said Made in India. And I was heartbroken because I was like, I thought you went to Europe and you brought me a dress that's made in India. And I was really, really upset. And cut to today, I am so proud, as are so many designers, to write Made in India on all our labels. And I think that has happened for a variety of reasons, but largely it is because of how we as Indians were able to reclaim our power and space through pop culture, through Instagram, through TikTok. There's a reason why fashion is still one of the biggest, most watched, content on Instagram and on TikTok, because it speaks a very universal language. I have a body, you have a body. Even if I give you a sari and you don't know anything about India, you'll know how to kind of wrap it around you. There are only like few ways that you'll have to do it. So it doesn't need so much translation. And when we talk about soft power, soft diplomacy, one of the most important aspects of it is culture. And one of the most important aspects of culture is fashion, is clothing. It's how the people dress themselves because of the climate, the weather, their history, where they come from, their lineage, and everything is reflected through fashion. Mm-hmm. It is our external kind of display of who we really are, which is why I'm sitting here in pink, because I want to say it really loudly, like, this is who I am. I don't want to be a boss girl and sit here like in a pantsuit, which is very masculine. I want to sit here in a cat suit, which was hot pink with a sari drape. So I think fashion allows us to do that, to cut language, to cut body type, to cut through gender, to cut through so many barriers and a lot of other things kind of have to deal with that fashion doesn't have to deal with. So
Absolutely. I think of this iconic moment when in 2002 when Aishwarya Rai wore this iconic gold sari to Cannes Film Festival with Shah Rukh Khan and Sanjay Leela Bhansali for Devdas. The world just looked, and they talked about it. And I don't know if that was the first time, but I know it was a moment in history when we were saying that Indian fashion is taking its rightful place.
But it wasn't actually celebrated that much.
It wasn't?
No, it wasn't at all. Not in India, not outside of India.
No. Okay.
And I think that's what I'm saying, that until we took our space and our power back through our probably cinema, through music, through Instagram, through young people and saying, look, we're really proud to dress this way and be this way. I don't think an Aishwarya Rai in isolation going and wearing the sari there was at all appreciated or understood. I think it is only when it kind of transcended platforms, because you just suddenly saw this person in a sari on the red carpet.
Right.
You had no context. You just did not know what was happening, why it was happening, or why she was dressed like that. But now everybody has so much context. Thanks to pop culture and thanks to the fact that it is something that can actually go viral now.
Yeah, exactly. Many of us at Harvard, we attend a lot of cocktails, conferences, events, and a lot of times we choose to wear a sari instead of a gown, and anyone can point you out and say, oh, this person is likely from South Asia. And now it's normal. It's also seen as cocktail attire. And I think that's big. And Papa Don't Preach is doing a great job at that. So thank you for shedding light on that. Now we're talking about artisanship, and I want to turn to you, Shubhika, and ask you about, artisans and the karigars who work on your brand. And, we talked earlier and you mentioned that, the value is, and their talent is not valued and it's not given its due, and that you see that as a big problem. And, fashion, of course, sprung from their springboard. So you obviously recognize that, you see it for what it is, and are trying to facilitate their growth. So can you tell us about how you're advocating, about what some issues are, and just tell us about artisans and their relationship to your brand and what you've learned along the way?
So this is something that is actually really close to my heart and my purpose. All that I feel for fashion and for what I do is actually linked to the fact that I get to work with these people every day. And that's the beauty of working in India, is unlike how it is for a lot of designers based in Europe and America and stuff like that, I actually get to sit next to my karigars every single day. Anything that I'm designing is 100% collaborative. Like I'll be like, is this color looking good? Do you think this is looking better? So it really is, even the design aspect is a collaboration.
Not to interrupt, but this is a conscious choice you have made also as a practice, right? Which is very different from everybody else. Just for you to acknowledge that to the room here. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I don't think it is that unique. I feel like in India, it's a lot of designers have access to this kind of an shared experience and a collaborative experience with the karigars. Having said that, I feel like we do get appreciated and recognized as a brand, who recognizes these efforts. But I feel like it is such a deep and a complex problem that would really require so much more intervention and actual action put in place for us to be able to right all the wrong that we have done for so many years. If I can just tell you very briefly, these karigars, they usually move or immigrate from UP, MP to big cities like Mumbai and Delhi to get jobs. They come here and they live with other probably like 10, 15 men in a 200 square feet room. They don't have an attached toilet, washroom, sanitation, and anything like that. They come to work every day. They work for 8 to 9 hours, and if there is overtime, then about 12 hours at a stretch. And then they go back into these homes. They spend 25 years of their lives at a average away from their family. The kids grow up, their parents die. They probably just go back to their villages once in a year and a half or so for like 20, 25 days or a month. And they make about $242 or $245 a month for a skill that they have actually started learning, a lot of them at age 6. And it is a skill that, according to me, is irreplaceable. As I was sharing with Aditi earlier, today I can be sitting here at Harvard and saying like, oh, I'm a designer. But if they leave me, I cannot pick up the needle and the thread and make anything of what goes on here. So literally, it is a skill that is irreplaceable. But if you look at the food chain of a fashion house, it's right at the bottom. They're sitting right at the bottom. Even like pay-wise, Indian fashion industry is estimated to be at like $40 billion by 2025. But 90% of the workers are informal workers. And of that 90%, a big majority is karigars or artisans. They don't have tax benefits, they don't have insurance, they don't have so many things that I can't really get into. So I think that what I have learned, luckily I've turned 35 and slightly wiser, that problems will always appear bigger and bigger and bigger the deeper you go in and the more you get involved in it. And for me right now, it's probably bigger than this whole campus in my head. But the way to kind of approach that is just one step at a time. So what we're doing is that we're just giving them a platform to showcase their work. We're telling people, look, these are the people who are actually making your lehenga. So when you're coming to buy my lehenga, do not negotiate. Because I may not be cutting it from their pay or their bonuses, but a lot of other designers might, to give you that 50% discount, because it is a competitive market. We're unfortunately functioning in a very capitalistic society and a market. So you can't even really blame the brands or designers at the end of it. So I think the education has to happen at both ends. The consumer who's buying it, the people who are actually running the brands, when we become very aware of the fact that the food chain looks like this, and this is the guy who's suffering at the end of it, I think a lot of the thoughts will turn into actions. At our end, we do try to give them insurance. We try to give them we do give them family insurance. Another issue is that they are largely Muslim. So in India, that is a challenge to get their paperwork, their ID, their PAN cards, Aadhaar cards in place to get their kids into school. It's a very complex country. It's a very complex problem. And I may feel very bogged down by it on most days, but I also feel really, really lucky that I can actually work with them and try to make that better. And today, I think the smallest step that we've taken, which has been widely appreciated by everybody, is, I read this beautiful article by, I'm forgetting a name, of course, because I'm sitting here, I'm going blank. But what it says is that fashion is probably the only industry where it takes an army to create one outfit. But at the end of it, you just see one label with one person's name on it. And that's a lie, right? So what we've done is that we have our label, which is the brand label. We say it is made in India really proudly. And we have our two heads, one embroidery head and tailoring head, both their names embroidered onto all our garments. And just seeing that and seeing their name out there, people who worked for 25, 50 years, I think they feel a sense of dignity. Because if you sit with them, the only issue that they place in front of me when they say, I will not put my child in this line, is because there is no dignity in this. So I think that these are the steps that we're taking. And hopefully with a lot of work that Aditi is doing, or probably Alka ma'am is doing, and brands probably like us, and then like us will help it